I want you to see what I've been doing. We're doing Bris. I've been doing Bris for a while. There's a trajectory, okay? First of all, we explain Pasha the Tam of Bris, Api Pasha, Api Nigle. The two timing of the Rambam, the Tam of the Rasag, and then Chasidus. Chasidus also explained the Tam of Mila. How did Chasidus explain the Tam of Mila? You're removing a blockage. Chasidus took it to a new level. Chasidus told us things that the Nigla doesn't tell us. For example, that there's two parts of the Bris. There's a Mila and a Priya, which spiritually means removing a basic blockage, which is, I guess you could call it psychological, and a very fine blockage, which we'll call spiritual, to avodas Hashem. Right? And the Alter Rebbe did that in Tanya, if you remember. And then we began to explore, I suppose you could say, what's unique about Mila. What makes Mila special vis-a-vis other mitzvahs? I suppose that's how you would put it. Okay? So if I had to summarize it, let's just say, we have a reason from the Rasag for Mila, we have two reasons from the Rambam for Mila, the Alter Rebbe in Tanya offers us a reason for Mila, which is Milo Priya, that whole thing. And then we have what's the difference between Mila and other mitzvahs. So the first thing we had in the regard of what's the difference between Mila and other mitzvahs is that there's something called Mila Hal Yoina. The Alter Rebbe already says. There's a Mila Hal Yoina. There's an aspect of Bris which makes it higher than other mitzvahs for which Ram waits. Then we learned something else. This is very, very important. It dominates the Rebbe's Torah incredibly. It's so important to the Rebbe. And that is, Avraham was before Bitul HaGzeira. Avraham was before Bitul HaGzeira. And the Eibishter was Mevatel, the Gezeira, for him, only for the Bris. Right? That's how it works. Avraham was before Matan Torah. Avraham, page 53. It's the last few pages of the stack. Avraham was before Bitul HaGzeira. The Eibishter was Mevatel, the Gezeira, for Avraham, just for this mitzvah. And of course, the proof is the Simna Yotcha Tachas Yerechi, that when the Eibishter Ramin has to make a shvua, he uses the Bris. This is what we learned. Okay? So, here's how I want to present this. First of all, we learned Taimei Mila, and then we learned Davar HaMeyuchad LeMila. What's unique about Mila? What's unique about Mila? That there's something called Mila HaYom. What else is unique about Mila? The second thing which is unique about Mila, we started it yesterday. I'm hoping to finish it today. It depends on how quickly we read. The second thing about unique about Mila is that we throw back to Avraham Avinu. We say in the Nusach HaBrocha of Mila, Asher Kedeshanu, B'mitzvesa V'tzivanu, La'achnise, B'vrise, Shel Avraham Avinu. When we do a bris, we mention Avraham Avinu. And we have a problem with this. The Rebbe says this question. I didn't make this question up. The Rebbe's question is that the Rambam establishes as a klal. The Rambam teaches us a policy, a rule, that Ein L'meidim Elifnei Matan Torah. That means mitzvahs from before the Torah was given do not count. And again, the place where this becomes contentious is Gid HaNosha, because Gid HaNosha is only mentioned in Parshas Vayishlach, and the Rambam holds that Moshe Rabbeinu wrote that pasuk in Al Kain Leyechlu B'nei Yisrael Gid HaNosha Ad Hayom Hazeh after the Torah was given. So we have a rule that anything written in Bereshis, unless it's written after Parshas Boy in Sefer Shmois, is not in the minyan of Taryag. Why do we do Bris Mila? We do Bris Mila because it says in Parshas Tazria, in Parshas Chumash Vayikra, Uvayom Hashmini Yimel B'Sar Elos. The Bris is repeated again. In other words, if you took all the psukim of Lecha, there must be 20 psukim on Bris Mila. If you took all the psukim of Bris Mila and Parshas Lecha out, it wouldn't change us at all. It would change the Chumash, but we would have the mitzvahs Mila because we do not learn mitzvahs Mila from Parshas Lecha. We learn mitzvahs Mila from a 5-word pasuk in Parshas Tazria. So here comes the question. We shouldn't say Lach Nisei Bevrisei Shel Avraham Avinu. We should say Lach Nisei Bevrisei Shel Moshe Rabbeinu. Avraham had a bris. We have a bris. It's not the same bris. It's a different bris. So why do we hold on to the terminology Lach Nisei Bevrisei?
We were both commanded from Hashem from our bris.
Right. But we have Taryag mitzvahs. Our Taryag mitzvahs are predicated, right, on 3 expressions, which I've said 10 times at least. Hamayesahu ha'ikir. Lasas le'is barach diri betachtoinim. And the third is Bittel HaGezerah. The Eibush was Mevatel the Gezerah B'Tel Yedim B'Tachtenim. Right? Correct? So we have a different bris than Avraham. We have a very. Why do we continue say Lachnisa B'Vrisa Shavram Avinu? If we don't understand bris Avraham Avinu. So yesterday we learned one Sikha. And today we're learning a second Sikha. What did we learn in yesterday's Sikha? In yesterday's Sikha we learned a fascinating idea. We're not saying Lachnisa B'Vrisa Shavram Avinu because we do what Avraham did. We're saying Lachnisa B'Vrisa Shavram Avinu because we're the same as Avraham. We're not saying Avraham did a bris, we're doing his bris. Avraham did a bris, we're doing the same bris he did. Why? How? So the Rebbe gave us this philosophy called Psichas Hatziner, opening up a new channel. Avraham was the first. And there's a rule, Benegete Kamen Yonim, that Rebbe Haradaka brings up about Mesidas Nefesh. The first person who's Moise Nefesh opens up the channel of Mesidas Nefesh, everyone that comes after him. Avraham is special because he was the first. I told you yesterday the story with the Harubnikes, Talmidei HaMagid, who were listening to the rejects that the Magid did not accept, who were discussing what was special about Avraham Avinu's Mesidas Nefesh. One said, Zrizusei of Avraham Avinu, the Alter Rebbe brings this in Tanya. Another one said, Simchasei shel Avraham Avinu. And the third one said that Avraham Avinu was the first, and the Mendel of Haradaka brought us. The Rebbe quoted it in the Sikha. So the Rebbe says, when a baby who's 8 days old does a bris, he cannot say precedent. He doesn't know. If an adult does something, and he knows that before him other people did it, you can speak about precedent. You can speak about psichas hatziner. But if you're 8 days old, you have no choice. You have no awareness. So what happened before has no impact on what you're doing. So the Rebbe said in that Sikha, this is Al-Kutas Sikhis Chelik Yud, that what makes every child of Avraham Avinu, because that child is the first person to do a bris, period. Because when you're 8 days old, there's no concept of precedence. Now, if you're going to argue back, the child doesn't have any choice, so he's really doing nothing. So the answer is, somebody actually mentioned yesterday in the class, the Sikha, Al-Kutas Sikhis Chelik Chav Hey, where the Rebbe says that when it comes to bris, you don't want the child doing anything. In our relationship with Hashem, we have to do things. With our relationship with Hashem, we have to make free will. In our relationship with Hashem, we need to have some kind of a partnership. But in the bond, in the covenant, in the connection, the best way to be connected to God is let Him do all the connecting. Why? It's not complicated. He's infinite. And if an infinite God makes a connection, it's an infinite connection. So it's advantageous. It's better that the baby not know what's going on. But there's more than one advantage. When the baby doesn't know what's going on when he's making a bris, that makes the bris Hashem's covenant, which makes it an eternal covenant. And when an 8 days old baby makes a bris, he's the first. There is no precedence. He's never going to say, somebody came before this child and did bris to set up this bris, because when it comes to a child of such an age, there is no before. So, Rabbi Yossi, why do we say Lachnise Bevrise Shel Avraham Avinu? Not because we're doing Avraham Avinu's bris. We're saying Lachnise Bevrise Shel Avraham Avinu because every child is Avraham Avinu. Okay, this is a summary and a review of what we learned until now. Questions or comments?
If they have a song, Moses and me.
Moses and me.
Moses and me is Avram.
Oh, my bad.
So is there a chorus?
Yes.
What? Tell me the words.
Because I've got a little bit of Moses.
Say it again.
Because I've got a little bit of Moses in me. I've got the power to break free. The
Right.
bloody river is going to split before me.
Which river?
The bloody river.
The bloody river.
The bloody.
I get it. What else?
I got a little bit of Moses.
Does anybody know where this is written in Tanya? Pedic Mem Beis. What does it say in Pedic Mem Beis?
Make sure we know in every generation.
That the Gemara says, Moshe Rabbeinu says, all you have to do is fear God. Since when is fear a small thing? And for the Gemara in Lagabi Moshe, for Moshe Rabbeinu Yid is a small thing. So the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, but I'm not Moshe. So what does the Alter Rebbe answer? I got a small piece of Moses in me. Pedic Membeis. Take a look, chapter 42. You brought it up, look it up. But here we're saying, I got a small piece of Abraham.
Yeah, sorry.
It's a different thing.
People, yeah, they're both holy. Yeah.
Very important. Very, very important. Okay. I'm going to tell you what the Rebbe is going to say first. I'm going to tell you about Ped, the Nakuda we're going to learn today, then we're going to read it inside. The Nakuda that we're going to learn is that there are actually things higher than Torah mitzvahs. There are things above Judaism. The Nakuda that we're going to learn today is that there are things that are higher than Torah mitzvahs. In the words of the Rebbe, there are certain things where there was never a gezerah in the first place. Right? This whole conversation is predicated on the idea that there's a gezerah and a bitla gezerah. The Eibush just separated heaven from earth, and by Har Sinai broke that gezerah. The Rebbe is going to say in this sikha that there are certain ideas, there's no divisions. Right? I'll give you the dumbest argument for this of all. Right? Where is God? What's the answer to that question? How do you answer the question? Where is He not? Right? That's the only way you could say it sufficiently is to say it negatively. Where is He not? Yeah. So what do you mean God's in heaven? So the answer is yes. That's the whole machlokes chasidim and misnagdim, as they bished in the bathroom. The misnagdim said chas v'sholem, and we said absolute, and then we accused each other of being apokursim. They called us being apokursim. How could you put Eibishter in a bathroom? We called them apokursim. How could the bathroom exist without the Eibishter? The discussion is very, very involved, but the Nekuda is Eibishter is everywhere, including in the base of a Zora. Rahman al-Islam. The Eibishter is everywhere. The Eibishter is everything. So now wait. If the Eibush is everywhere, how could you speak about heaven and earth? How can you speak about high and low if the Eibush is everywhere? The teretz is the high and the low has to do with the level, with light of the Eibush. But when it comes to the Eibush himself, the Eibush is everywhere. So the Rebbe says, you know why we say, Lachnisei bevrisei shel Avraham Avinu? Because Avraham Avinu's bris is higher than Torah mitzvahs. It's above the gezerah and the bittul gezerah. Now I want to tell you honestly, the Rebbe is never going to mention the bracha. In this sikha, the Rebbe doesn't mention the question about the bracha. I'm making the shidduch. He's going to talk about Bris Mila, and the end of the sikha is going to be that Bris Mila has 3 levels. The highest level of Bris Mila is a level where there was no gzeid in the first place. It's above the whole idea of a divide between high and low. And I'm applying that to this concept. You know why we say, Lachnise bevrise, why we attribute Bris Mila to Avraham Avinu? Because the only aspect of Bris that we have that's different is the place there was a Gezerah and there was a Bitala Gezerah. There were things about Bris Mila that Gezerah never touched. This is why we're still saying Lachnise bevrise shel Avraham Avinu. Go ahead. Schoenberg Gordon.
No, I'm not getting the Bitala Gezerah didn't touch.
I gave you a simple example. Where is God?
You said
So the relationship between the Yid and the Eibishter, there's an aspect, let's call it Mesiras Nefesh. The aspect of Mesiras Nefesh, it was never exalted in the first place. You understand?
Yeah.
Let's read. Yes, sir.
Why do you have to wait to do a birth if with always a...
Oh, that's such a good question. That's gewaldig. So there's several answers. First of all, he only reached that when he was told. But I'm going to give you a more sophisticated answer. Because he wanted the lower ideas also. He wanted the mitzvah level. He wanted the lower level. Avraham could have done the higher level of Bris on his own, let's say for the sake of argument. But he would not have had the idea that the Eibishter was mevatel. Bris is 3 things, you'll see. One of them is a mitzvah. Another one is something called a mitzvah close. And the third is this thing that there was no gzeira. If Avraham does it by himself, he has the highest thing. He doesn't have the lower ones. And he wants the lower ones also. They're necessary. You understand? Okay, let's read. Page 53. B'makir hadin shahamila doiche es haShabbos. The din is that Shabbos is pushed away by Bris Mila. But there are 3 different sources for this. Lameidim, Matzinu, B'klos, Gimel, Limudim. There's 3 sources for this halacha that the Mila pushes away Shabbos. Shnayim b'Shas ve'echad b'Michal. The 3 are in the Gemara and 1 is in a Medrash. Now we're not learning all 3 because what the Rebbe does is the Rebbe shows that there's one din that you're allowed Michal Shabbos to make a bris. The Rebbe is going to say the reason there are 3 different sources for why you're allowed to be Michal Shabbos to make a bris because Mila has 3 levels. In other words, each source is speaking to a different level of Mila. The first is speaking to the mitzvahs Mila, on the level of mitzvahs. Mila is stronger than the mitzvah of Shabbos. The second is speaking to what's called the klal of mitzvahs Mila. And the third is what we're going to be learning about, the atzmos of mitzvahs Mila. So I'm only doing one of them. In other words, if you look at your pages, you'll see I underlined very little, because I'm just singling out the highest aspect of mitzvahs Mila. Okay? The Das Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak. Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak says, Nilmad hadova megezeh shava. We learn Bris Mila from a gezeh shava. Gezeh shava means you compare words. Donin ois Bris v'doiros, ois Bris v'doiros. You have in one place the words ois Bris and the word doiros. Ois Bris means a sign for a covenant. Doiros means generations. In a different place it says ois Bris v'doiros, a sign for a covenant and generations, and we make a gezeh shava. By Shabbos it says ki ois hi and the deireis bris eila. Ubemila ksiv pashaseinu v'hoya la ois bris, and then it says uben shmeinas yomim hi melachem kol zochot la deireis. So by Shabbos you have the word ois bris and the word doir. By Mila you have the word ois bris and the word doir. And the Chazal learned from this gezeh shava that Shabbos is not greater than Mila. That's Reb Nachman Bar Yitzchak's source. It's a pasuk in Parshas Lech. Okay? Now, go to the next underline, bottom of the page. The Das Reb Nachman Bar Yitzchak nilmad hadin mikosu b'Parshasenu b'gzeh shava b'Parshas Milas Avraham Avinu. This is why we're learning the Sikha. Because the Rebbe points out that Reb Nachman Bar Yitzchak does not learn the Indian of Mila Deicha Shabbos from Hilchot Shabbos. He doesn't learn the halach of Mila Deicha Shabbos from a pasuk in Parshas Tazria. He learns it from Avraham Avinu. In other words, there's three sources for this din that Mila is stronger than Shabbos, but two of them are mitzvahs. Either Shabbos says, desecrate the Shabbos to a bris, or Mila says, desecrate the Shabbos to a bris. The Reb Nachman Bar Yitzchak learns it from the pasuk in Parshas Lecha by Avraham Avinu. Turn the page. V'yashloima says the Rebbe on page 54, the reason the Chazal bring three different sources for why you do a bris depends on why. Why is Mila Deicha Shabbos? There are three psukim because there's three different whys. And what the Rebbe does in the Sikha brilliantly is he shows it's not three shittas, it's three opinions, it's three madregas. The lowest madrega is called mitzvah. The second madrega is called klal. The third madrega is called etzem. Each one of the Tanoim is bringing a different pasuk for mitzvah Mila because they're speaking on it on a different madrega. Okay, turn to page 55. Lefi droshas Rab Nachman Bar Yitzchak. Rab Nachman Bar Yitzchak says shemekoyer din zeh, that the source of this halach, that Mila Deicha Shabbos, who mi Parshas Mila is from the section of Mila shenemra laVavraham, which is written by Avraham Avinu. Says the Rebbe Harinimtzat comes out the molin b'Shabbos, the fact that you do a bris on Shabbos, who mizman Avraham Avinu. It's from the times of Avraham Avinu. Harinimtzat lefi, why? Lifnei, before shenitna Torah, before the Torah was given. V'lifnei shenemra kol Parshas Shabbos, before the entire Parsha of Shabbos was given. According to Reb Nachman Bar Yitzchak, you know why you do a bris on Shabbos? Because when the mitzvah bris was given, there was no Shabbos. Avraham Avinu didn't have Shabbos. Now Avraham Avinu kept Shabbos. Avraham Avinu kept all the 630 mitzvahs. But Avraham Avinu kept the 630 mitzvahs because he chose to keep them. Not because he was commanded to keep them. Bris Mila, he was commanded. So you know why Mila Deicha Shabbos? It's because there was a time when there was a Mila and there was no Shabbos. Fregakasha, go ahead.
How is he commanded if only by Matan Torah we only got the mitzvahs?
Because the Mila wasn't the exception, right? We just learned two sichas that answered that question. That Avraham Avinu had one mitzvah which he was commanded. That's why he waited to do it till he was told and all the rest. Because this was the only mitzvah which was for him like Matan Torah. So now the kasha that you should ask is, if a Mila is Deicha Shabbos, because when Avraham did a bris there was no Shabbos, when Shabbos comes along later, it should become a question again. You know why Mila is Deicha Shabbos? Because in the times of Avraham Avinu, there was no Shabbos, but we have a Shabbos. So how can you learn? How can you learn? How can you learn that Mila deiches Shabbos from a Yid who didn't have Shabbos. V'yashleimar, says the Rebbe weiter, I'm on page 55, 5 lines into the page. Shalafiza, according to this. Listen carefully. Hu loy ragdin bedine Mila dine Shabbos. Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak is saying, we learned from Avraham Avinu that Mila deiches Shabbos. You should know that the reason for his opinion is because this is not a din in Bris Mila, like one of the Tanoim learned. It's not a din in Shabbos, like another Tano learned. Listen to these words carefully. Bris Mila is a high above the measure of the Torah. It's completely above the category of Shabbos. Now, I am learning this Yicheh, and I'm connecting it to the fact that we make this bracha. Even though the Rebbe doesn't bring that up in the Sikha, but I think it's a kind of obvious comparison. Turn the page 56. Okay? And I'm reading it inside. And listen carefully, okay? Toichen mitzvahs Mila madgish. The content of the mitzvah of Mila underscores. Inyan Mesiras Nefesh. The content of Mesiras Nefesh. U'kameisha omru razal, like it says in the Gemara. Ala posuk on the posuk. Ki Lecha haragnu kol hayom, which means we were killed for HaKadosh Baruch Hu all day long. Lecha haragnu, for you we were killed all day long. Frag the Gemara, v'chiyef shalei la'adam leharig b'chol yom. How many times can a person be killed? Once. What does it mean? Lecha haragnu kol hayom, all day long, every day we're killed for the Eibishter. And for the Gemara, elazu Mila. It means Mila. So the Rebbe says, what is this Gemara saying? That the phenomena of a bris Mila is a phenomena of Mesiras Nefesh. Now, understand, bris Mila is one of the Yak mitzvahs. It's one of the 630 mitzvahs. But in addition to bris Mila being one of the 630 mitzvahs, bris Mila is also a concept of Mesiras Nefesh. V'hine, let's continue. Inyan v'keach ha-Mesiras Nefesh. There is a concept of Jews being martyrs, Jews sacrificing their lives for the sake of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And I want to point out that there's two different expressions. One expression is called Mesiras Nefesh, and the other expression is called Mesiras Nefesh al Kiddush Hashem. What's the difference between Mesiras Nefesh and Mesiras Nefesh al Kiddush Hashem?
The difference between Amar and Rabbi Kiva.
Okay, that's Edel. You've put me in a very uncomfortable position. I'm not going to say yes or no, I'm just going to tell you my piece. Technically the difference is Mesiras Nefesh is from Chaya, and Goyim are capable of it also. Mesiras Nefesh al Kiddush Hashem is from Yechida, and only a Jew is capable of Mesiras Nefesh al Kiddush Hashem. Okay, what's the difference? Mesiras Nefesh from Chaya means I die for a cause because I believe in it. If I'm devout, if I'm an Elech, a Goy, Lahavdol, or a crazy Muslim today who's going to blow himself up and take people with him to Elam HaEmes because they think that if you believe in a cause, you kill yourself. But Mesiras Nefesh al Kiddush Hashem, the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, you can't help yourself. A Jew is connected to Hashem and he can't cut himself off. So the phenomena of Mesiras Nefesh al Kiddush Hashem is a Jew doesn't believe. He doesn't even believe in it. He's not frum. When you bring a Jew to a point where a Jew has to tell himself, not you, not the Goy. A Jew has to tell himself, I cross over this line, I'm not Jewish anymore, he can't do it. That is called Kiddush Hashem. He's not doing it for himself, he's doing it to sanctify the name of God. And in Kabbalah, this is Mesiras Nefesh on a level of Yichid. And I think I mentioned to you earlier, I love to say this. I heard this from the Rebbe in my own ears. And it's one of those moments that I'll never forget. It was a simple moment. I remember where I was standing. It was a weekday Fabrein, and there was on a mic. It was very easy to hear him. And the Rebbe was talking about the Nazis. The Rebbe spoke about the Nazis from time to time to bring out the point that if you believe in God, but you create your own version of God, so then God does whatever you want him. God tells you to do what you think is right. That's the whole point. So in the middle of the Sikha, the Rebbe pauses, and he says, I object to the allusion to the Shoya, however he worded it, to the Holocaust as genocide, or Holocaust, whatever you word. Genocide means the mass killing of a race. And then the Rebbe said with incredible Israkshus, it wasn't genocide. 6 Million Yidden gegangen lekade Shem Shamayim Barabim Zayin. That's the quote. 6 million Jews went to sanctify the name of God in public. The problem is they were not given a choice. It wasn't like in medieval times that there was the cross or the sword. They just killed Jews. But the Rebbe said, it's not genocide. It's 6 million Jews being Mekadesh Shem Shamayim Barabim. Now, Pi Torah and Al Pi Hasidus, Kiddush Hashem comes from the Madrega of Mesiras Nefesh. So the Rebbe continues. Where does Mesiras Nefesh come from? Not from Moshe, from Avraham. Says the Rebbe, look inside. The idea and the power of Mesiras Nefesh, which exists inside each Jew. It's an inheritance from our fathers. It says in Tanya, look at the next words. Particularly Avraham Avinu. Now if you look in footnote 38, it brings different sources, but we just learned it in the previous sikha that we just encountered. Avraham opened up the gate to Mesiras Nefesh. So listen to this. What's the chiddush of our Yiddishkeit over their Yiddishkeit? The Bittul Gzeira, mitzvahs. Says the Rebbe has nothing to do with Bris Mila, has nothing to do with Bris Mila. Bris Mila has to do with Avraham Avinu. Because Bris Mila has a property of Mesiras Nefesh. Mesiras Nefesh is not from Moshe Rabbeinu, Kvayochel. It's from Avraham Avinu. Let's keep reading. Look at the Rebbe play with words here. The Medrash explains what happened when Hashem gave us the Torah, and I'm reading inside everything I've been telling you for the last week and a half. Before the Eibush gave the Torah, there was a decree. Those who are high should not come low. Those who are low can't come up. In other words, you can be spiritual, you can be physical, but you can't be both. You cannot take a physical thing like an esrog or a lulav or a dollar bill or a check or a pen and make it sacred. You can't take a piece of parchment, write on it a Sefer Torah, and it has a kedusha. The words are holy, the ideas are holy, but the paper is paper. By Matan Torah, the Eibush bevatel the Gzeira. I'm reading weiter. Over Matan Torah, please look inside. When the Eibush gave us the Torah and this battle HaGezera, the decree was nullified. V'ani ha'maschil, Avraham Avinu was the Eibush says, I'm the first one to break the decree. Shenemar v'yered ad Hashem al har Sinai. First of all, Hashem comes down on the mountain, so the Elyon comes to the Tachtein. V'achakach, and only afterwards does it say in the pasuk, V'Meisha Omar Alei Hashem, that Hashem tells Moshe Rabbeinu to come up. So the Medrash learns when the Eibush bevatel the Gezerah, he acts first, and we act second. First Elyon came Tachtein, the Eibush comes down, and then the Tachtein goes up to the Elyon. Now look at the next words. Please look at the bottom of the page 56. However, Kol Hagadorim Dalyanim V'Tachteinim. If you speak about categories, a higher category and a lower category, any kind of category, any kind of criteria is a worldly phenomenon. I'm going to ask you a dumb question. How many gods are there? One. How many parts does God have? None. So where does high and low come from? Of course the answer is high and low is not a part of the Eibishter. High and low is a part of the world. High and low is not a part of the Eibishter. High and low may be a part of the Torah, which is the blueprint with which the Eibishter created the world. But you cannot say that if in the Torah there's a high and a low, in the Eibishter there's a high and a low, because the Eibishter is one. So the idea of higher and lower in Torah, not just in the world, is a worldly criteria. Ava, I'm reading on. When it comes to Mesiras Nefesh, please look inside. Shalamayla legamri, which is altogether higher than. Turn the page. Migeder elyon v'tach, the whole phenomena of higher and lower. Says the Rebbe, lo shayich lo ybar. It's impossible to say shalagabei kayemes gezera, that as far as this is concerned, there is a division ben elyonim v'tachteinim, between higher and lower. Ubesignei teiras hachasidus, and in the language of Chasidus, says the Rebbe, Hariatzmusa Yizbarach, the Eibishter, Nimtza, Ba'alyenim, B'tachteinim, B'lishu, Mechil, L'klal. Hashem is not here more than a place. Where is God? The answer is, where is He not? He's not high, He's not low, He's universal. He's everywhere. Just like when it comes to Hashem, you cannot say that there's a difference in one place and another place. Kach leishayech chiluk bizman. You can't say a difference from one time and a different time, namely, koydem matan Torah le'acharei matan Torah. Before the Eibush gave us a Torah, after the Eibush a Torah, those criteria of time and space have to do with gedorim, with categories. When it comes to the Eibush himself, there's no categories. V'al pi zeh, accordingly, move on, it's understood. The inyan ha-mesiras nefesh of Bnei Yisrael. The Jews had mesiras nefesh. La'achrei matan Torah, after the Torah was given. But the mesiras nefesh we have today is not attributable to Moshe Rabbeinu. The mesiras nefesh we have today continues to be Hayarusha Lono Me'aveseinu, was an inheritance from our fathers, including specifically Avraham Avinu and the Ha'aves Beklav. Because they are moed al b'chinas essence of Israel. The essence of the Jewish people is not Judaism. The essence of the Jewish people, let's use the words of your song, is not the Moshe aspect. The essence of the Jewish people is the Avraham aspect. Shemitzadzeh, when you talk about Avraham Avinu, leisa kol ha'gedorim de'elyon v'tachton, there's no categories of higher and lower. And that's where mesiras nefesh comes from. So, the end of page 57 now. When Rab Nachman bar Yitzchak says that lemeide Mila b'Shabbos, we learn that to do a bris Mila on Shabbos, not from the psukim by Shabbos, not from the psukim by Mila after Matan Torah, but by Parshas Mila d'Avraham, from Avraham Avinu's Mila. Key, the reason is meduba begeder zeh shebemila. We're talking about this category of Mila. Page 58 now. Shelamayla mitzivuya Torah. It's above Torah altogether. In other words, shemitzadzeh, that from the level of bris Mila, which has to do with mesiras nefesh, yeshnei b'chol Yehudi, there is in every Jew, hateva, the nature, lim ser nafshei al yichud shma yizborech, to sacrifice his life for the achdus of Hashem, gam kishe'enei mechuyev v'zal b'Torah. One of the things that the Rebbe talks about in the Sikha, which I'm sort of skimming, is that there are times when a person is mesa nefesh not required to. When the Friedrich Rebbe sent Yidden into fire for chinuch of Yiddish kinder, there's a whole shaila if he was allowed to do it. The inyan of mesiras nefesh sometimes expresses itself in things which are higher than the Torah, and this we learn from Avraham Avinu. Let's finish. Page 59, near the end of the page. Shahagimul limudim hanal. We have 3 limudim about why you're allowed to do a bris on Shabbos. Mevatim gimel in yonim sheyeshnam b'mila. There's 3 parts to a Mila. Number 1, Aleph, I'm at the bottom, page 59. Mashi echad mityak mitzvah satera. Mila is a mitzvah like any other mitzvah. It's a mitzvah. And if I don't have time to give the arichas, but mitzvahs are called evorim. Every mitzvah is one part of the Eibishter's body. Amongst the mitzvahs, it's higher than them. Mila pushes away the mitzvah of Shabbos because the mitzvah of Mila is higher than the mitzvah of Shabbos. Base. Mashahi mitzvah klolos. Another idea, which is a general mitzvah. And making it a general mitzvah makes it shkula keneged kol mitzvahs. It includes all of the mitzvahs. Which is why kiyumu higam b'Shabbos, we do a bris even on Shabbos, because it includes all of the mitzvahs. Shezeh poyel shleimus, it affects a wholeness, a perfection, a peacefulness. Va'ois, in the covenant shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'Yisrael Hashem and the Jewish people. Beini uvein b'nei Yisrael eisel ye'elam brisi b'b'saracham b'brisem. But then there's Gimel. This is the point. Zeshi l'mayla me'hamedido v'hagbola d'teiru mitzvahs. The idea that bris Mila is totally above Yiddishkeit. Not it's a mitzvah. Not it's a mitzvah klolos. It's not a mitzvah. It's shayeches, libris, v'hiskashus atzmos, has to do with the covenant and the essence bond. You know what essence bond means? The way you're connected to yourself is essence. When you say a yid has an essence bond with Hashem, is it saying your connection to Hashem is like your connection to yourself. V'kesher zeh, this connection, mispataz b'milas Avraham Avinu, expresses itself in Avraham's bismillah. And I'm telling you that in my humble opinion, this is another reason when we make a bris, we say la'achnise bevrise shel Avraham Avinu, because the bris that we're making is not Yiddishkeit, it's Yid. The bris that we're making is not Torah and mitzvahs, it's God. And this comes from Avraham Avinu. Okay, so next week I want to do Bikur Chaylim. I'm going to try.